Chapter 9. Praise to Raptor Jesus, I shout as my mecha reboots after my last cracking attempt bypassed the lockout on my Starblade. What? Helen says over the earbuds we were both wearing. Helen hadn't wanted to sit inside the mecha, preferring to sit on a log at our small campsite, so I had pulled out the small communication devices so I could keep an ear on her. In response, I activate the manual controls and make my Starblade sit upright. It is several days later, most of which I spent trying different methods to unlock my mecha. I had suffered through a vast number of flashbacks to try and find a workaround, but well, the mecha had defenses against most of those. Who would have thought those hacking protocols inserted in my brain during hypno training would come in handy? I joke as I start doing a diagnostic on my Starblade. Luckily nothing seemed damaged, I only took a couple of shots during the last fight, and none made it through the shields. So we were going to head to what's his name, Duke Morrow? I ask. Sadly no, Helen says. I was able to get a message to the Duke's daughter, and she says that they are being watched. Settling the mecha into a stable position, I unhook and wrap myself in a shield. I rift jump down, causing Helen to flinch. Can you not do that? She scolds. Jumping isn't safe. Sure it is, I say, tapping my glove. As long as I have a shield around me I'm perfectly safe. Heck, I can even do bear jumps, I say, flexing my arm and showing off a nice bicep. Thankfully, one of the benefits of my Starblade chair is that it will work out my muscles, so I'm always in good shape even without exercising. What happens to me if you get lost during one of your jumps? Helen replies, quote, well, Bookworm tracks you down and hopefully just executes you, I say, rubbing my chin. Helen stared at me in incredulity. You can't just tell a girl that. She barks out, shaking her head at me. I shrug. I don't see the need to sugarcoat the truth, comes with being a techno-wizard demigod, I say, flexing once again for good measure. Stop, you dork, Helen giggles. Helen had lightened up a lot in the several days it took me to undo the lockout on my mecha. So back to the problem. Who do we try to contact? As much as I enjoy hanging out in the woods with you, it's only a matter of time before we get found out. Well, there is Count Jaren Mufasa. He is not very trusted, but he is one of the most powerful nobles on the planet after my father. Helen says. Count? I say, raising my brow. Sighing, Helen says, the noble titles are not tied to the old world nobility. When the heads of the different settler clans decided to go with a landed nobility form of government, they picked titles that sounded good rather than ones grounded in reality. Wow, that's weird, I say, shrugging. In the human empire almost every planet had a slightly different form of government. But I'm surprised you told me being a princess yourself. I responded. Just cause I'm part of the system doesn't mean I don't see the flaws in my grandfather. The Star Knight Ironhawk decided to marry the then current queen, so my family is half GAC anyway. GAC is the term for a galactic outsider, meaning someone from another system in the empire, and it is usually slightly derogatory. So Jaren Mufasa is the best option? I ask, looking at Helen. I think so, Helen says slightly hesitantly. Alrighty, I say, let's pack this up just in case we need this stuff later, I say, gesturing at the camping gear. Later that day I flew low across the planet, and despite Helen's objections and without the help of my jump booster, I still took several rift jumps to break up our trip just in case we were being tracked or followed. Boy, was it harder to make those jumps. I could still do it being a jumper knight and all, but I was pretty worn out by the time we arrived at the Count's estate. The estate of Count Jaren Mufasa rose majestically before us as we approached, a sprawling complex of towers and ramparts surrounded by lush gardens and fountains. Despite the circumstances, I couldn't help but admire the beauty and grandeur of the architecture. We were greeted at the front gates by the Count's majordomo, an impeccably dressed man in a suit modeled on an ancient butler uniform from Earth, a weird rich people man. The dude in the butler costume riding a hover disc escorted us inside after verifying our identities. I was relieved we hadn't been shot out of the sky on approach. After parking my Starblade in the estate's mech hangar, we were led to luxurious guest quarters and invited to freshen up from our journey. The chance to take an actual hot water shower was heavenly after several days in the wilderness. I took my time, letting the warm water soak away the fatigue. Sonic showers are just not a good replacement for real water. Clean and refreshed, Helen and I were then brought to a lavish dining room. The dining room was opulent, with high vaulted ceilings, grand chandeliers, and walls decorated with intricate tapestries. The long dining table was set with fine china and gleaming cutlery, with our places marked at one end. After the human servants served the dinner, real people not robo-servers, the Count dismissed the servants from the room. I activate a small scanner built into my shield glove, scanning the food for any signs of poison or tampering. A subtle whirring sound emanates from my glove as I wave it over my food. Helen shoots me a nervous glance as I complete my scan, but the food appears untainted thankfully. My apologies for the intrusive scan, Count Mufasa. One can't be too careful in these uncertain times, I say. The Count's mouth twitches almost imperceptibly. No need to apologize. I understand your caution. I take a bite of the expertly prepared entree, studying the enigmatic man across from me. Jaren Mufasa was tall and powerfully built, with dark skin like many of the natives here, a shaved head and a neatly trimmed goatee. His piercing eyes seemed to analyze us with every blink, giving me the uneasy feeling of being under a microscope. So, Ice Wolf, he says, I've heard of your exploits. You've made quite an impact on our fair planet. His smile held a hint of menace. And you, Princess Helen, welcome to my humble abode. Helen's expression hardened, but she managed a polite smile. Thank you, Count Mufasa. Your hospitality is appreciated. Now, let's cut to the chase. Jaren steepled his fingers. You two are wanted criminals, did you know that? Of course, I respond by taking a bite, then after washing it down with some excellent wine. Bookworm has seized control of the planet's government after the debacle at the spaceport. What did happen at the spaceport? The footage was blocked or scrubbed from the local data net, Jaren says, leaning forward. I was there with the government delegation to welcome the Star Knights at the spaceport. Ice Wolf here showed up and started talking about an attack. No one was sure what was happening, and Bookworm simply murdered King Werner in cold blood before my very eyes. As soon as he arrived, Helen said. Yes, our ship was attacked and destroyed when we jumped into the system. After that, Bookworm told me to go to the spaceport and make sure King Werner stayed there. Then Bookworm attacked as soon as he arrived. I say, things at the spaceport happened so fast that I was just following Bookworm's lead until he tried to execute Helen here. We had a small disagreement, so I took Helen and left. And now we need your help to clear my father's name and find the real culprits and to put a stop to Bookworm, Helen says. I see, Jaren mutters, stroking his chin thoughtfully. Jaren leans back in his chair, hands steepled in front of him. He was silent for a moment before sighing. Very well. He stood and walked to a cabinet, pouring himself a drink of amber liquid. I'll help you, on one condition. Me and Princess Helen exchange glances, both of us wondering what the cost would be for Jaren's help. If I'm going against a Star Knight, I need suitable compensation. Helen, I require your hand in marriage in compensation, Jaren says. I nearly choke on my wine. Marriage? You can't be serious. I gasp out. Helen's eyes flash with anger. I am not some prize to be won, Count Mufasa. She spits out. Marriage was an old custom for binding people and property together. It was common among the old aristocracy and wealthy corpo families in the last age before the rise of the Star Knights and the current age. Modern pair bonding is usually done in either reproduction contracts or lover pair bonds between waifu and husbando, neither bound to each other's property or were permanent. Jaren shrugs. Those are my terms. A royal marriage would cement my position and influence. I slam my fist on the table, rattling the dishes. Not acceptable. The princess will never agree to that. Jaren's expression darkens. Glaring at us, Jaren says. Then I believe this meeting is over. Guards. Armored guards burst into the dining hall, training slug throwers on us. I just laugh, activate my shield gauntlet and say, You're making a very large mistake, Jaren. Have you forgotten I'm a Star Knight? I say, pulling out my new rift cutter and igniting it. The crackling purple blade made from a rift in reality pulled all the guards' attention on me. Oh, I know what you are, and what you aren't, Jaren says. Bookworm sent out a message that your implants are turned off so you can't use your powers or mecha. I let out an ugly chuckle. Did you miss the fact I flew here in my disabled mecha? I say, looking the Count in the eye. I'm more than capable of killing everyone in this whole estate myself without my mecha, and I could do it without breaking a sweat. Stay in your chair, Knight. I'm talking to the princess, Jaren says dismissively. Guards, if he moves, shoot him down. I am a Star Knight, one of the masters of the human empire, I say, staring at this jumped-up planetary noble that dared threaten me to my face. I feel my combat systems start to kick on and fire to start to flow through my double sets of veins. Wait, stop this, Helen says. This is stupid. If you're not going to help us, Jaren, we are just going to leave. Ice Wolf, just get us out of here. Jaren scoffs. Princess Helen, you think I will just let a prize like you just walk out of here? Shaking his head, he activates a personal shield and pulls out a fancy-looking plasma pistol and a strange remote. Guards, he starts to say, when I rift jump behind him and with a slash from my rift cutter slice him in half. The guards, disoriented by my sudden jump, are just starting to swing their slug throwers around when I jump in among them, slashing and cutting through them like a knife through warm butter. The dining room is now a bloodbath in seconds. Helen stares at me with horror and awe as I flick off the blade as if massacring the guards were nothing more than spilling some wine. One of the darker parts of our hypno training hardens us to death and carnage. Ice Wolf, that was impressive. She stammered, struggling to process the carnage around us. Then when the smell hits her, she doubles over and heaves up her recently eaten meal. No time for that, I say grimly, grabbing her hand. We need to get out of here before reinforcements arrive. I focus on the inside of my mecha with another quick jump. We are back in the relative safety of the Starblade. I reach out to the crystal I left back in the woods near where we had camped out before. And with a yell, I rift jump us back to the woods in one jump. The night air is cool against our heated skin as I pop the cockpit and climb down into the clearing. Helen falls to her knees, heaving. I crouch down beside her, panting, trying to regroup from the battle and the jump. We're safe. For now, I assure her, but I know it's a lie. What now? She asks, wiping her mouth with the back of her sleeve. I stare out into the night. I remember something I had heard in passing what seemed like a lifetime ago on the ship. The Stone Bloods have a mining facility on this planet, don't they? I take a deep breath, steadying myself after the frenzied violence. My combat systems were still on high alert, ready to eliminate any remaining threats. But for now, we were alone under the starry sky. What now? Helen repeats, her voice shaky. I glance back at my mecha, its starfield paint job glinting in the moonlight. Disabled or not, it has gotten us this far. The Stone Bloods, I say after a moment. They have a mining facility on this planet. If we can make contact, they may be able to help us get off-world or replace the beacon to bring in other Star Knights to stop Bookworm's rampage. Helen frowns. The Stone Bloods? Are you sure we can trust them? They are the mining megacorp, one of the Big Six. Her talk of the Big Six triggers a minor flashback. In the Empire there are 6 major megacorps that have a presence on most planets in the Empire. Stone Drake drones on. There used to be 7, but after a rather spectacular goat roping by a young knight, which is why you all have those inhibitor chips now, there are 6 left. Each of these 6 corps has the Faber blueprints for certain pieces of lost tech, which is how they have so much power, and why we only step in when they get too far out of line. Stone Blood Mining Corp handle large-scale mining and refining. They also sell mining and fabrication equipment for smaller-scale mining and manufacturing operations. They also manufacture many products, but mostly of the industrial or military variety. They are run by the Stone Blood family, a family of gene-augmented humans. Snapping out of the flashback, I say, no, we can't trust them much, I admit. But we're running out of options, and I did rescue the great-granddaughter of their current owner not long ago. So that should give me some pull. Wait, Helen says incredulously, you don't mean Jade Stone Blood? Yup, that's her. It was my graduation mission. Didn't I tell you about it? Wait, that was real. You took on an entire base of terrorists and an army of wings by yourself? Helen asks, staring at me. I thought that was just a story you told me to impress me. Yeah, that story is real, although it was only about a dozen wings, but yeah, it happened pretty much how I told you, I say. Why do you ask? She is here, I mean on this planet. Helen says excitedly. Jade is in charge of all of her family's mining and manufacturing facilities on this planet. The Stone Bloods have had a mining facility on this planet for several years, but just recently she was brought in and made the new planetary director. It was a couple months back. It seemed a little strange at the time since she was so young, but we thought it was just your standard nepotism. Seeing as how she was the granddaughter of the current head of the company and all. Helen explains. Well, as long as Bookworm doesn't find out about her connection to me, this might work in our favor. I say excitedly, my mind conjuring up all my fantasies of meeting back up with a grateful Jade that I had over the last months. My heart starts pounding as I consider meeting the girl of both my literal and figurative dreams again. Yeah, I've had a lot of dreams about meeting her again. Well, what are we waiting for? I say, let's go give the Stone Bloods a visit.